This week we had the special opportunity of having one of my cousins and his wife join us. They are people Nathan and I both look up to in many aspects of life and can't wait for y'all to hear some of their story. This week they share their journey through a period of waiting to starting their homesteading adventure and how God provided along the way. We learned some practical tips as well as some biblical perspective in different seasons of life and are excited to share it with you. Thank you for listening.
Welcome to the Olive Shoots Family Podcast, where we talk about family and parenting, homesteading, and the things God is leading us towards. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Brittany. We've been married for 3 years, have one little boy, and just got our first piece of land where we plan to build and start our homestead. We are passionate about the family unit and getting back to the basics of the way God created us to live. We have big dreams and are learning what it looks like to pursue those dreams while first trusting God's leading.
Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. All right, well, this week is really exciting because we get to have a couple on that we've actually talked about probably a lot of times by now. So Brad and Steph, just kind of tell us who you guys are and just your family and just kind of where you guys are at in life. And just if you were going to like a brand new small group, like church small group, how would you introduce yourselves? Like, just give us a quick intro.
Well, my name's Brad.
My name's Stephanie. We've got 6 kids, ages 11 and under. So we are right in the middle of the trenches in parenthood.
Yeah, that's right. And I work remotely from home for a software company, which is somewhat of a new development last year and a half. And babe?
Yeah, and I am a full-time homemaker, so I try my best to keep things running smoothly at home. And I also homeschool the kids.
Which basically means she works 24/7, wearing 1,000 hats and does it all for free. So
I do get paid in hugs and kisses, so there's that.
So yeah, about a year and a half ago, we moved on to a 6.5 acre hobby farm as first generation homesteaders. And other than our golden retriever and 6 kids, we kind of really just started accumulating livestock pretty quickly. 2 barn cats to manage the mice and snakes, somewhere around 35 chickens now, and a couple guineas, and 3 Jersey cows. So lots of new and exciting adventures in our new backyard.
Yep.
In the first year and a half, yeah.
All right, so y'all just transitioned within the past year and a half from city Houston area, and you said you were first generation homesteader. So what did that like transition look like, and how did God move y'all's heart in just a drastic difference in how you were raised and just the direction that you're going right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, kind of taking it a step back a little bit, God really began to work in our hearts many, many years before the move, when we began kind of vision planning for our family. And we weren't, I know y'all have done podcast series on this, which is awesome. We weren't near as diligent as you guys at kind of getting pen to paper and writing down our family vision and values and those things until probably, I'm trying to think.
8 years into our marriage.
8 years,
we're pregnant with our fourth child. So
yeah.
I
know we got a picture of it in our room as a memory of us standing in front of a place where we did our first vision retreat. And that was in March of 2017. So it was in front of a little cottage that we stayed at a B&B at the back of a 5 acre property. And that was kind of what we really kind of began an annual tradition for us to do vision planning and kind of revisiting our vision statement. And it wasn't just a statement. It grew into like a 10 or 20 page document of just things that we had decided we wanted to, integrate into our family, into the way we discipline our kids, into the way we raise our kids, and to homeschool our kids. I mentioned the value systems and the vision statement. So there's just a lot that went into it. And I know you have done a whole episode on vision planning, and so we won't dive into that. But that is this was 5 or 6 years before anything came to fruition about us actually moving. And that had that long of a time where God had laid it on our hearts, and then time had passed before, like I said, any of it really kind of came together. So for us, it was just about getting somewhere quiet and inspired, and getting our thoughts and the things that God had laid on our hearts down on paper. And one of the foundational verses we actually wrote down, it was our top page one. It was our top vision verse, was what has become a family verse for us, which is Colossians 2:7. Let your roots grow down into him, and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth that you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. And so we are overflowing with thankfulness even to this day, and can't even really imagine or fathom, looking back. But we're just blown away at how much God has done just in the year and a half that we've been here, and bringing our desires to completion. So, some of the other things that we documented in our vision treats were really kind of just more lifestyle changes, and getting back to the question about how do we get to homesteading. And so, maybe did you want to share some of those, like why we?
Sure. Yeah. Some of the lifestyle changes, just regarding, I guess, the way we wanted to raise our kids, was we wanted to develop a love for God's creation over man's creation. Our desire was really, how do we create in them a hunger and an appetite for things that are good, beautiful, excellent. And, we mentioned we do homeschool. We've got 6 kids. And so we were wanting a lifestyle that allowed our children to learn organically through everyday life, and not just to be confined to a textbook. And I don't know if anybody homeschools or is in the middle of homeschooling. If you are, maybe you've heard of Charlotte Mason. I love her philosophy. She's got a ton of good quotes. One of my favorites we actually have framed up in our school area, and it's education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. And I love where she talks about that education is an atmosphere, because children are born with that natural inclination to learn. So for us, and for me, homeschooling them, I just felt like moving out to the country and creating an environment where our kids could follow that inner drive, to learn, to explore, to discover, to create, was really important to us.
Yeah. I think one of the other practical things that we desired, as a family, and kind of just vision planning really early on, and going somewhere quiet, going somewhere out of country, and just being on the back of a large property and somewhere quiet. And we're actually surrounded by wild chickens and I think pigs and things while we were there, is that kind of got a stirring in our heart for homesteading, of course. But we also just kind of desired having easier and regular access to things that we could do as a family with our kids as they grew up, and things like hiking, around mountains would be great. And access to an area that had 4 seasons, being able to do things like boating and kayaking and biking and horseback riding, farming and gardening on a big scale, not just in a small backyard. And also have our kids be able to learn the value and the intended joy and the appreciation of kind of working with their hands alongside their parents at young ages. These were kind of the types of things that we wanted them to have memories of at a young age, and not just get lost in video games and TV screens and look for their next screen time, which was never really been even before we got into vision planning, was never really part of the culture of our household. But we didn't want the temptation to be there. We wanted the eagerness of the hearts to be drawn towards the outdoors and God's creation. And so that was just a big piece of driving us to make this move. And even though we didn't know where it was going to be at that time. Another big aspect, obviously, that most people do homesteading from ground, for their main point, is we wanted to raise our own meat and veggies, and, have both us and our kids really understand where food comes from, how it's processed, and how it's raised, and be able to know that what we're putting in our bodies is good, whole, naturally organic, raised food. And we could be proud that we, with our own sweat and tears had played a part in it coming into the dinner table. So, those are some things that God laid on our hearts over several years. Like I said, we went back to do this vision retreat annually, and it continued to grow and manifest. But
I imagine just like going from that lifestyle in living in a city and just pursuing pursuing different things of like, those are big changes. And you, one of the things that really stood out to me in all of that was you have that picture of you guys standing of where you first kind of had that first vision retreat, first moment of, we feel like God is leading us to a change. And we've talked about it a little bit before, of just like having Ebenezer's that we can look back on. And I'm just curious, like, how in bringing about these changes, I'm sure there have been some moments of like feeling the difficulty, or that this is a hard journey to go through, or just moments of maybe even, can we even do this, or something along those lines. Has been being able to look at that picture, look at that Ebenezer, and remember that moment of, this is why we're doing it, and this is where it all began, and this is what God laid on our heart. What's the importance of being able to see that Ebenezer?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, we as humans are just, I don't know, I can't speak for all of us. I'm naturally forgetful. But it's actually, we had a guest pastor at our church this past weekend, and he didn't talk about Ebenezer's per se, but the actual title of the sermon was Stones of Remembrance. And so he talked about how a lot of times God can deliver to, and I won't go through the whole story, but he delivers in such big ways. And even so many times in the Bible, like crossing the Jordan River on dry ground, he told his people, hey, you need to go and put stones of remembrance here, because we want you to remember that God came through for you. And so that altar, kind of like you said, an Ebenezer in our life is the remembrance. So it says, hey, look, I want you to remember why why you have the things that you have. And so having that picture as a reminder to us, having times where even when it's hard, that we can come back to a visual or a tangible item of remembrance and saying, you know what, we didn't do this on our own. God got us here. Which it's only been a year and a half, and it's still possible to have those days. And so, yeah, having something like that as kind of a rock, as a reminder for me, who's very forgetful. And as a man, I think sometimes just want to take credit for, oh yeah, this is what I did for my family. But you know what, at the end of the day, I can take no credit. And it was clear too, as God moved through our process too, that he was clearly the one that was orchestrating things all along.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, you said that first one was 8 years ago, and just thinking that like that took 5-6 years almost for it to fully, before you were able to start on some of those. I know y'all had started on homeschooling, and you were doing some of the gardening that you could while you were still like in your backyard, like you said, in your small backyard. So
yeah,
I just thinking back, like y'all didn't just wait until you had the land you wanted in order to start. Y'all started, but it just the faithfulness and I know I'm not very patient of waiting the 6 years or whatever to finally be able to do more of what you had been wanting to do for that long.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously, and that you hit on a good thing, especially probably for some of the listeners that are on here, is because homesteading doesn't have to start just because you get some land. For us, it did start with building a garden, and really, it was actually, I think maybe, we didn't even do seedlings in the house at the time, so we didn't know what we were doing. But like everybody
we started somewhere.
We started somewhere. And for us, that was just building a garden and growing what we could, and having, and pickling and tomatoes and just whatever it is that we could get to grow in the 110 heat index of Houston, Texas. So with probably just the regular old, bagged soil that you get at the store. So anyway, the other part of that, I think, that you were touching on too, is just trusting God through the process, and patience. I is probably one of my biggest flaws, even to this day. It's never been my specialty. And so God had kind of revealed to us, the what in our vision statement, but he didn't reveal to us the where or the when or the how. And so we really had to kind of learn to rely on his timing and trying to cultivate some of that patience, which, I know there's people in the Bible that had to wait 40 plus years or 100 plus years to have God's. Of course, we're still waiting for some of those promises. But specific promises that God had made to certain people throughout the Bible, like Abraham, for example. It's just in our 5 to 6 year wait, it seems like nothing compared to some of those. But for an impatient guy like me, it was something that God definitely had to do a work on and not overstepping.
Yeah, and I mean, we did not see a path on how we were get from where we were to where we are now. Like the current circumstance we were in with Brad's career, I mean, there was just no foreseeable path for him to even work remote, and so it was just a difficult waiting season. And at times we did get impatient, and it's especially hard when you don't have all the answers, or it seems like things are not progressing as fast as you had hoped. But God's timing is never early, it's never late. And I feel like during that season of waiting, we didn't know what we were doing, but the entire time God did. And I tell Brad this all the time. I think I may have shared it with you in the past, Brittany. I've told a lot of people that are going through that waiting season, that embroidery illustration or tapestry, on the back side of a piece of embroidery, it's messy and it looks like all the thread is entangled. And, sometimes that's how it felt for us during that waiting season. And that's how life can seem, that's the side we see. But if you flip it over, it's this beautiful picture. And that's the side that God sees the entire time. He has that aerial view of our life, and he has a plan and a purpose for every stitch and for every place that he leads us through. And I know Brad and I, we definitely had to grow in patience and really just learn to trust in God's timing.
Yeah, we didn't want to force things or stay stagnant. There is a verse that comes to mind that kind of stuck with me even as a young child, and that was Proverbs 3:5-6, and that's to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge him and he'll make your path straight. So another thing that Steph and I have said over the years in some form or another is that God can't steer our ship's sails if it's still tied to the boat dock. And so if we really wanted to be able to hear different whispers from God throughout our waiting period, we needed to be in tuned to him, and kind of like being on the right frequency of a two-way radio. In order for us to get in tune and be on the same wavelength with God, we had to be tapped into his word, seeking his wisdom, being kind of an active, unending prayer and diligent just about seeking him about this, not just doing our annual vision retreats, but to stay connected through him vertically as well with horizontally with each other. And so that was just a big piece of this process and wanting to trust him and staying connected. And then really after months of stillness and waiting and praying, practically things started coming together after this 5 or 6 year period. I mean, when things started rolling, it was within a couple months that we had picked up and moved out of state. And it started with an internal job opening that was really unexpected. I applied, didn't have an expectation of necessarily getting it, didn't know that this was going to be our gateway in any way. Applied against 12 different people, which is normally a lot for a role at our company. And God moved through that. We had a unique home sale situation, which after I had heard about that job offer, I had clicked a link on Zillow, and it says, "Hey, sell your home with us." And you get those things in the mail. Probably people do. Sell your home for cash or sell your home to a company. And so we thought, okay, this is going to be another one of those scams with Zillow, but let me go ahead and try it before I start looking into realtors. And lo and behold, within 48 hours, I had an offer that was more than I expected for our home, probably more than it was worth. Then the next thing was we're like, well, let's start looking for homes in areas that we're interested in, and found a for sale by owner property that had like 3 or 4 photos on it, nothing very attractive, didn't tell us much about the house. But for some reason, our heart was drawn to it. And so it was probably overlooked by most on the market, which kind of gave us advantage. We had to kind of fly out of state, arrange timing to do that with 6 kids. That's not easy. And we go look at the house, and then there's the negotiation process. which we also weren't expecting, but came out ahead, not because of our bid. It was actually a lower bid, but we had written a letter to the family, and they fell in love with us and our family, and meeting us during the tour, and our kids, and just thought, man, we would be the right family to take over their home after they've been here for nearly 20 years. And so, and the house itself, I mean, some of the history goes back over 100 years. So that was important to them, which was just another God confirmation throughout the process. And we also met various people and family and friends and vendors, and still people to this day that we're just kind of amazed by the connections or relationships, or somehow how the stories are connected. And it's been interesting. But most importantly too, our family, this was a very difficult decision and really an interruption to their lives as well. And I know that y'all shared, being close to family is always important. And so this was a very, very difficult piece of the pie, because we did move quite a good ways from family. And we both love our families very much. And so I can't speak for them through this process, but I do really feel that God gave them peace as they sacrificially supported us through this transition. Mm-hmm. And we really started to see things come together even from that side of it, which was another, like I said, God confirmation throughout it all.
Yeah, that's really cool.
If you're looking for some of the softest clothes with the cutest designs for your little one, then check out Wild Robin Boutique. They specialize in organic baby clothing with neutral tones and earthy patterns, and they provide quality fabrics without sacrificing comfort, style, or your budget. Wild Robin Boutique was founded by a fellow stay-at-home mom and Christ follower. She has a heart for families and little ones, so be sure to check out her site linked in the show notes to give her some support and pick out something for a kiddo in your life.
That's a really cool story just to see when it's almost like you guys are, able to see the pieces that God has been working to put together for years and years now. Maybe even before that first vision retreat, that God has been working this for a long time now, and being able to see that all come together is really amazing. And how do you take that going from this new lifestyle, new aspect, and transitioning into the homesteading journey, and maybe even like the first month you were living in that house, of just, even then, just the conversations we've had with you guys of just how everything had fallen into place, and now you get to step into homesteading in a new kind of way with your own land, with like what you mentioned, quickly getting into livestock and jumping head first into the diving into the swimming pool. And so just like how did you, when everything fell into place, and this journey like completely took a hold of you guys, how did you integrate that into daily life? So like God did this amazing thing, this amazing story, and now it has to become normal daily life. So how did you integrate those two things, and I guess how did homesteading play out in your day-to-day?
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember how much time I allocated, like from a job standpoint. I think I took off like 2 days, enough for us to drive U-Hauls, out of state and get settled. Maybe, I also happened to be around my birthday, and I needed my driver's license, my state license for Texas was expiring. So I was having to get a new one for out of state. So I think I maybe allowed it like 1 or 2 days to kind of get all that stuff settled so I could be legal. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then basically, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday, and maybe I hit the ground running, and I set up my office kind of ish, a place where I sat down in the garage and worked, so I could have a quiet area until I really got everything together. And Steph was like, okay, let's start unpacking. And then I remember it was right around the holidays too. So this was December, and we had like
December 4th.
December 4th,
December 4th
of 2021. And so, my birthday was the 8th, and that's when everything was like transferring over. And then I think we had the short weekend, and we already knew that all of my vacation was going to be spent up, because it's Christmas right around the corner in like 2 or 3 weeks. And we have Christmases we travel to different families. And so we had to I don't think it actually became real that we had moved and got to settle down until like mid-January of the next month, because we just were here for like a week, and then we traveled to different family members' houses for 2 or 3 weeks, and then finally came back and decided, oh, like, okay, this is real. And it still like was like a pinch me type
very
feeling
much.
for like 6 months or something. I don't know. To this day, still sometimes we just look up and we're like, wow, we're so blessed to be here. So, but then organically, as we started unpacking boxes and started getting into homesteading and stuff, was obviously the two barn cats was the first thing we did. I think we bought them on our way back from Houston, from a Facebook post that we found. And we're like, we need something to control the mice in the winter that are trying to get in the house, and something to control the snakes. And we knew that the previous homeowners had 3 cats, and they're like, you need cats. And we're like, I never thought I'd be a cat owner, but it was the first livestock animal we got. So, but yeah, so it was kind of after the cats, I think we were like, okay, let's move on to something else pretty quick in like February. And we started thinking, okay, how can we do chickens, and how quickly can we start building something with our kids and put something together so we can house some chickens. So yeah, do you want to share, I don't know, anything about the kids, or how we kind of integrated them into some of the stuff we did? You kind of really took off the homesteading thing, because I was like, okay, how do I work remotely? This is just figuring out something else. But
well, I think my favorite memory of just moving out here, finally being in this place and on our homesteading journey, it had been a hope and a dream for so long. And throughout the whole process, we were transparent with our kids. I mean, we wanted to make sure that this lifestyle change was something they were on board with too. And so we had prayed and prayed together as a family. And so when we finally got here and this vision was becoming a reality, it was just so neat to see God's goodness become tangible and real for our kids as he paved the way, like right before our eyes, when there didn't seem to be a way. I remember the first couple nights we were in our home, we were just mesmerized by the sunsets out here, because we had lived in the suburbs for so long, and neighborhood sunsets they just don't even compare. And so I remember I was cooking dinner in the kitchen, and the kids just came running in from all different points of the house and the yard. Mom, stop what you're doing. Come out and look. God painted the sky just for us tonight. And it was like in that moment, I was like, wow, like this, we're here, and God is so faithful and so good. And we've just had so many memories like that. I mean, sunsets are our favorite time of the day out here, but it's the discoveries like the sunsets and the fireflies, and just being immersed in nature and seeing my kids connect to this new life on the homestead, and then integrating that in with schooling and our faith and God's creation. And it's been really neat. The kids taking ownership too of living out here, and just, they walk outside. Just last week, they went out and collected 65 caterpillars on a nature walk in our pasture and brought them inside in like their own little habitat. The pickle jars. We've got 3 pickle jars, and we've got 65 caterpillars in there. And I would say probably all of them, I think, have turned into chrysalises now. And yeah, I guess it must have been a couple weeks more, because it takes a little while for them to get into a chrysalis. But I guess it was a couple weeks ago they brought them in, but they're in chrysalises now, and I'm having butterflies hatch every couple days now. So it's like we have our own little butterfly farm, and I'm walking upstairs into my kids' room, and there flutters another monarch, and I'm like, oh, welcome to the farm. And so anyway, it's just been such a blessing, and it's just been so neat.
Yeah, I don't know if butterflies count as a livestock animal, but then that would put us like in the hundreds of animals now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
It's just neat to see that they love it too.
You said that phrase you said of when God's goodness becomes tangible. I think that's something that's just so powerful, and it just, can almost bring tears, because whether you felt that in homesteading, or you felt that with kids, or maybe if you're listening, like maybe you don't have kids yet, or but you can relate to those moments where God has just been developing something in your heart and developing something in your life, and just that moment where the pieces come together, and you're like in that moment holding. I just picture like holding God's goodness in your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and just how special that is and special those moments are. I just think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also cool to like the way your kids have viewed this whole journey and view even just the property, and is obviously different than y'all probably do and would have had they not been um I mean, y'all wouldn't go out to the pasture and bring in 65 caterpillars and watch the whole process of that, but just like the things
Nope.
that excite them, that's really cool. And then like them being excited about the sunset is something that we're excited about as adults sometimes, but also miss so often because we're just so busy with whatever's happening at that time of the day. So I know that the times we've been up there, um, it's just evident that they are very much their kids are very much invested and love what I mean, I'm sure that they have moments about chores and all that kind of stuff, but that they take ownership of what's going on, and they're excited to tell us and to tell people visiting about your animals and just about what they get to do. And honestly, they do a lot of work also, but they don't always I I don't think they always view it as work. But
Yeah.
how have y'all developed that like ownership mentality, or has it just kind of come naturally through the wanting them to enjoy the outdoors type thing?
I think a little bit of both. You know, part of our vision for the whole family, we knew this was going to require the contribution of everyone, and so that was some of the things that we had talked about um, early on. And the kids had always been kind of involved, even though they weren't like on our vision retreats. But we were always transparent with our kids and kind of want to make sure that this was something that they were okay with and they were on board with before we even made the move too. And many months of prayer together as a family. And so as the vision kind of unfolded and became a reality, it was neat to see, like what Steph had said, that God's goodness had become tangible. And so now, fast forwarding to being on the farm, yeah, they loved being on the outdoors, but they knew that, hey, we said this was going to be a lifestyle change. It was going to require the hands and feet of all of us to pull it off, and to um, many hands make the workload light. And so I don't think, especially in kind of like the honeymoon stage what couples have, but in the honeymoon stage of moving out to homesteading, whatever that would be called, we all took on this mentality pretty well that we're going to have to do our part. And for our kids, practically speaking, we've built what we call a chore chart, and it's up on a wall and it's by the back door so they can see it. And this has been a great visual reminder of what everybody's chores are, and that they have age appropriate chores that include both indoor and outdoor chores. But one of the things that's made it kind of nice and less redundant is that they rotate each month. The responsibilities would change. Um, there'll be maybe one or two that might stick with one person. Like, for example, our daughter has recently got a rabbit, our oldest daughter, and she worked hard for it and paid for it with her own money, which is actually part of kind of this chore system that we've put together. But she likes to always take care of her own rabbit, that chore stays with her. But she also goes above and beyond on many others. And so we rotate these chores. There's a buddy system and accountability on it. And one of the things we've loved is we started doing, I don't know, maybe it's been about a year now, but we do a vote each month and we let the kids do it. Me and Steph really don't have a whole lot of part in the voting process unless there's a tiebreaker, but they vote each month on who has done basically the best job. And I'm surprised there's very rarely is the same person month to month get it back to back. The other thing too that we allow is for them to vote for themselves, which I think has only happened maybe 2 or 3 times. And if it does, usually it's a unanimous decision anyway for that person. So they're patting themselves on the back, but they know they did the best job. But even more ironic than that is, like, sometimes the kids give an explanation most every month on why they chose somebody, and it's usually, especially if it's like not the one that me and Stephanie had kind of collaborated and thought they would go with. we'll hear their explanation. It'd be something completely different. Like maybe they knew that that person improved a lot at doing the chore, or it was something that they really didn't want to do, and so they endured it. And they gave them the vote for that reason. So anyway, that's been pretty cool. A pretty cool way to integrate the chores, make sure that they get done, have some built-in accountability amongst each other between our kids. A little bit of competitiveness to it, and then the reward system is that will whoever wins the vote for the month, they can decide if they want to get a toy or something interesting to them of a certain dollar value, or we'll offer to give them cash of a certain dollar value, and that cash value is higher, but they also get to tithe. And most of the time, the older kids choose cash, and the younger kids will choose some sort of tangible toy that they can have for the next month. But it's been a pretty well-rounded way for them to vote on each other and to win this chore system, which has been pretty cool. And the money that had been saved up, like I said, my oldest daughter recently bought herself her own rabbit, and that was something that meant a lot to her. And yes, it meant more chores, more feeding. I mean, I think the rabbit's probably one of the most high maintenance things we have on the farm.
Yeah.
But there's no regrets, and she loves it, and she paid for it with her own earnings from this chore system. So the system's worked well. You know, it's helped the kids grow in discipline and diligence and responsibility in a whole nother way than just the chores that we tried to kind of maybe push on them more back at our original home, you know, before homesteading. And there's teamwork and stuff, and really it's helped lessen the family burden, which is excellent. So another practical thing that we probably do is, you know, we also involve the kids along our special projects. And since they're really involved in the day-to-day chores, and Stephanie is too, big portion of my responsibility is the project guy. You know, nights and weekends, that's when I get to work on stuff because I'm working full-time throughout the day. But getting to involve the kids, even though every time we do this, we know it's going to make something take a lot longer than it should. I mean, sometimes weeks longer than it should. But it's doing it with the intention of like reaching a heart and shaping their soul along the way, and spending time with them, you know, one-on-one, and teaching them as we go. And Steph and I, we refer to a quote from Benjamin Franklin about this motto, this philosophy, fairly often. I think we need to probably put it on the wall somewhere. But
I plan on framing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so Benjamin Franklin says, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I will learn." And so for us, like the barn, for example, is just one area that's become a training ground for us. And it's really cool to witness, you know, the fruits of our labor. And when a project's finished, usually on our homestead, the projects are something that we get to use daily, which is nice. One of those examples I think I mentioned earlier is the chicken tractor. It's a practical thing that me and the kids worked together, the whole family actually. Count the littlest one, even hammered some chicken nails in, and built a chicken tractor that we use every day to not only provide shelter for the chickens, but also it's used to fertilize our future gardening area. And it's mobile. It provides shade, and it does a lot of things for our farm and our homestead. You know, milk stanchion was another one that we spent some time and worked on it as a family with the kids, and Stephanie uses that primarily the most. But as a family, we're milking the home dairy cow twice a day. So it's just another thing that we get to see. We're constantly reminded of the different fruits of our labor, which is nice, and instill a love for learning in our kids, and help get them passionate about homesteading when we do these things. Far more than they'll ever learn in a textbook. And Steph's good too about like just talking about books, like going to the library. They even did this before we moved out in the homestead, but going to the library, now that just the topics and the books that they changed, but they've always been big on this, especially our oldest daughter. I think with the library card, you used to be able to get like 40 books or something per library card. Now my oldest son, he's also wanting to get his own library cards because we can't get enough books. 40 is not enough every 2 weeks. Steph's got her own set. And so now they're getting books on things that are way different. You know, it's not just Where's Waldo anymore. This is last year and a half. It's been things about grasses and trees and leaves, and just it's really cool to see how their interests have changed. So yeah.
Chasing a toddler around, maintaining the home, and starting homestead projects keeps us busy. We try our best to make healthy decisions when it comes to what we eat, but the reality is we don't eat as much fruits and vegetables in a day as we should. That's why I'm so thankful for Juice Plus capsules and have been taking them for 4 years now. They help bridge the gap, adding what's missing from my diet with whole food nutrition. These capsules are sourced from the purest ingredients, the highest quality fresh fruits, vegetables, berries, grains, and oils. Some of the benefits I notice is I get sick less often, I have more energy, and I know I'm supporting my gut health and my immune system. I'm so thankful for this product, knowing I'm getting more of the nutrients I need on a daily basis in the midst of the busyness. If this sounds like something you would be interested in, I'd love to tell you more about it. Email me at brittany@oliveshoots.co, and you can also check out the products and find out more info by clicking the link in the show notes.
It seems like, I mean, just kind of what you guys have talked about is that educational atmosphere. It's all encompassing around your life, but that's also taken a lot of intentionality in designing that and figuring out what that looked like. I mean, can you guys just speak to like how did you go about designing, even before you moved out to the homestead, of visioning what it might look like, of designing how you wanted to create that educational atmosphere from the beginning, and maybe even like at what age did that kind of start? Did you start developing that in the context of teaching your children?
Yeah, so I just love that quote. Education is an atmosphere, because really, I mean, we're constantly learning from the moment we wake up. I mean, you think of like a toddler, it's learning several new things a day. And so I think I mean, obviously, you know, it's hard to, you know, take a little 18-month-old and have them cooking in the kitchen with you, although they could stir. I mean, but I'm just saying, I would start young. I mean, I loved getting my kids in the kitchen and just bringing them alongside you, because that's your kids. They're your shadow. Like, if you look behind you, your kids are there. They will sit in front of a TV and watch a TV all day, but the most important, if you let them, but the most important thing they want to do is they want to be by your side, and that's where they learn. And so that was kind of like our philosophy, is we just want to, what we're doing, okay, we're gonna be intentional, and we're gonna bring you along. And like, so talking about like our chore chart, you know, we have our youngest is 2, and so like her little chores, I mean, I bought these little Montessori, you know, brooms and mops. And so, yeah, she doesn't do a perfect job sweeping, but she and my 4-year-old are right next to me, and they're just learning. They're learning. And I know it's not going to be perfect, but I know in training that will become better as the years go by. And now my 6-year-old can like sweep a floor beautifully, but I started it when they were little, you know what I mean? And so I think it just including them in everything that you're doing. Yeah.
I mean, so going back to the TV thing, like kids are starving for engagement. And so if they're not getting it from the parents, then they're going to get it from the next bright, shiny thing in the next room over. And that might be the TV or the tablets or the phones. And that's not, like I said, it's never something that we wanted as part of the culture in our home. It's not healthy in large doses. And that's just a whole nother topic for another day. But but bringing that whole philosophy that Steph's talking about, just bringing the kids alongside you, involving them, that little Benjamin Franklin quote, involving them and they will learn, is captivating them and taking that energy and that longing that they naturally have to be engaged with their father and mother, just like we want to be engaged with our Heavenly Father. We want to be close to them. That's the same for our kids. They want to be close to us. It's, if we neglect them, then of course, they're going to go running to what they think the next best thing is, or something that does hold their attention. But they are capable of so much more. And so Steph is
yeah, kids are a lot more capable than we give them credit for. I've found to be true. But also, you know, it takes a childhood to train a child. Like, you know, you have 18 years with them, and so you just have to keep that I guess that long point of view, like of you know.
Sticking through it. Yeah. It definitely makes it harder. Like we said, involving does not by any stretch means we don't want to paint a pretty picture like it's easy. It's harder to do
It
it,
is harder.
to be an engaged parent and to involve your kids in everything. And it makes things messier and it makes them take longer.
Yes.
And there will be trying times and frustrating times. So we can't get stuck on the highlight reel that like, oh yeah, every family should do this. And it's just an easy button to push. It's not, but it's a philosophy that we, like you said, in years of our vision statement that was important to us, and that we intentionally knew we had to start early, even though we started much later than you guys did. We wanted to start early in our marriage and kind of hit reset, 7, 8 years in, and say we need to be better. We could be doing a better job at raising our family, about being more intentional about bringing our kids under our wing and how we spend our time with them. So
yeah, I read in a book somewhere, I forget which book it was, but really age 4 to age 10 is when you have the most impact on your child's heart and life, as when like they think like they're going to listen to you. And so that really convicted me, because I was like, man, at the time, like when I read that at the time, I had our oldest daughter was approaching that age. And so I just really wanted to be diligent of just reaching their heart and like parenting at the heart, shepherding the heart, like in everything we do, disciplining and everything. So
yeah.
Well, that was cool. Well, you said, what was it? How our kids just want attention and they run to us just like we should run to our father. And the weight of that almost, it's like, whoa, like when those times, because we don't obviously always get it right. And there's definitely times where we are tired of them running to us. And so just that weight of like, oh, what kind of example and picture are we setting if we're not going to be there for them whenever they're running to us, just like we want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank God that God doesn't slough us off, right?
Yeah.
I know.
But it's also, you also said that kids know a lot more than kids can do a lot more than we give them credit for. And we've already seen that just with our 18-month-old. Like, just, yes, he doesn't do really anything right, obviously, but just unloading the dishwasher, the little things that he can do, he can help, get the silverware and stuff. And yeah, it takes way longer, but he like genuinely likes to do it right now. And I'm like, how long is this going to last? Probably not very long. But if I don't let him do it now, then he's probably definitely won't like it later whenever I actually want him to do it. So that taking the time of figuring, like when he is showing interest, obviously letting him help, even though it takes way longer to do the job.
And we can't say all of our kids enjoy their chores, but they do enjoy getting to spend more time with mom and dad. And they know that because many hands make the workload light, that if they do their part, then we get more family time together as a result, because we finished our chores early. Mm-hmm. So, but also even once they get past that age of, oh, dishes are not as fun as I thought they were at 18 months, then you still have that to look forward to. Like there is other incentives once their perspective and they mature.
And we try to make chore time fun.
Yeah.
So we turn on music, and I feel like if our attitude is good, then they tend to adopt that attitude, But if we,
it's contagious.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're kind of wrapping up with a last question here. With all y'all have 6 kids. You're doing all this homesteading stuff. You're working. You're homeschooling. How do you structure your week so that you have intentional time just to connect with each other as husband and wife, and to grow with each other? Like how are you intentional in that?
Well, I think one of the key words, I guess, in that question is being intentional. And it's also, I think, important to note that, connecting and growing with your spouse looks different in various seasons. And I know y'all shared in other podcasts what that looks like in having a newborn. And for us, 6 kids, like you said, yeah, it's a lot. It can clutter your schedule real quick. And that's even before throwing the farm chores and all of that in there. So some of the things that we strive to keep in part, I guess, of our daily rhythm is from the beginning, I guess we've always gone to bed together. We've not had any kids ever sleep in our room. The kids have their own regular bedtime. They've got their quiet time so that we can retreat into our private bedroom and have some alone time, catch up time. And then another one is just honoring the Sabbath. I feel like just in the past couple of years, we've really tried to make this Sundays be a day of rest and an anchor in our long weeks. And so we'll go to church together, and then we have lunch together. And then after that, there is no agenda. Everyone pretty much has downtime for 2, sometimes 3 hours. And it is something Brad and I really look forward to, because it gives us time to reconnect during daytime hours as opposed to like late at night when we're so tired. Yeah. And so it just really gives us time to rest and renew our mind. And then I guess another thing I would say is just open line of communication, which seems straightforward, but I feel like we're so engulfed in like technology that many couples, they don't communicate as well. But a lot of times they just sit next to each other on their phone. And I think communication, like through speaking to each other, is just so important. And that's the part that strengthens your relationship. I read a book called The Female Brain, and it states that a woman says 3 times more words than men, which I guess they say equates to like 20,000 words a day, versus men is 7,000 words a day. So true. I know for me, like, I feel more connected with Brad when I'm able to share bits and pieces of my day with him. And so that can be really hard when we have 8 people living under the same roof and they all want to talk at the same time. So again, we have to be super intentional. And so one of the things we did in our home here on this property is we've created spaces for what we call couple conversations. And they're just favorite spots on our property. We've intentionally put 2 rocking chairs on our back porch that looks out into our pasture to watch our livestock. And then we've got rocking chairs on our front porch, which is perfect for watching the evening sunsets. And then the kids also have like their own spaces that are much further away from the house that we just can send them off to their little Ingetti retreats, which is like their hammocks in the tree or trampoline or whatever, so that we can have our little chats midday or whenever. A lot of times we'll have lunch out on the rocking chairs just to kind of catch up, but just keeping that open communication throughout the day. You know, obviously Brad works from home, so it's probably a little easier for us, but you know, just even if a quick phone call to check in just makes all the difference in connecting and strengthening your relationship.
Yeah, I was never really great at when I was in the office, like just picking up the phone and, hey babe, how you doing? Text or call. I think towards before we moved, maybe I get better about sending a text, but I'm very much a waffle in that way.
Now I just walk.
Compartmentalize. Yeah.
I'm like, you ready to go have our couple conversation on the rocking chair? Meet me there.
Yeah. So definitely working remote has made that part nice. And we don't get as much alone time as we'd like in the season of life either, you know, whether it's a hard day or I would say even harder day. Because as I mentioned on Homestead, there are many hard days of work, but it doesn't have to feel like hard work, depending on the attitude and the culture that you're setting and the tone that you're setting in your home. But it's important though for us, what I'm getting at is that we always build each other up, you know. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, therefore encourage one another, build one another up, just as you are doing. And so one thing that a phrase that we've clung on to in our marriage is that we are better together than we are apart, and we bring out the best in each other. And when one is weak, one is strong. And so this act of love, and this really is an act of, you know, many great books, and starting with the Bible, tell you that love is a verb and it's not a noun. It requires work. It requires active observation of each other, anticipating each other's needs and stepping up to help relieve the burden. And so it's important for us to edify each other every day in and day out. And I've heard y'all say this in recent episodes too. I think it's a great phrase that y'all cling on to, is we're on the same team. You know, even on the hard days, the hard conversations or the battles, or when things get stirred up, and don't go our way or don't go the way we expect, or it's just been a hard day and we take it out on each other for no good reason, to remember you're on the same team. As we say, we're better together than we're apart, and have that reminder. So I think that's good to have something like that, because especially with, like you said, we got 6 kids, there's a family of 8, there are a lot of people talking at once. There's a lot of things that we could easily get frustrated about, if we got hung up on every little thing, need to be clean or quiet or whatever all the time. And so we've learned to let loose a little bit and try and look for these other ways to connect with each other throughout this whole process. And as we've grown with our kids. So
yeah, I think it's so important to just find those phrases, whether it's, a reminder is we're on the same team, or we're better together than we are apart, or, whatever that phrase is for you, just a reminder of, like, you are to become one. You are in this together. And when God is working through one of you, he's working through both of you, because you're connected. And just to have something to cling to, some kind of phrase or reminder or image or something in your marriage and in your families of just, this is the goal, this is what we're shooting for every day, and to have something that just quickly and immediately kind of snaps you out of the present and remembers that bigger picture, I think is super important.
Yeah,
one of the things
absolutely.
you mentioned, was just the hammocks that you guys bought your kids, and that they have that hammock space while you guys are sitting in your rocking chairs and doing y'all's thing. And we've seen, like, they love their hammocks. That was like such a cool gift that you guys got for them. But talking about the intentionality of creating those moments with you guys having your own space, did that play a part in buying these gifts for your children, of like, if we can get this for them and they'll love it, but we also get to celebrate some time with ourselves as well?
Were you asking is it a selfish gift?
No, I don't mean it in a selfish way, because I think you're genuinely trying to give something that they love, but it's intentional is what I'm getting.
Yeah, was it intentional, or was it an after thing that you're like, oh, this has 2 purposes?
Well, since the trampoline or the hammocks actually were your idea, trampoline was mine. I know I was thinking of that with trampoline. We could use that'll take them outside.
Yeah, no,
but the hammocks, I don't know.
Were like, they were the first Christmas we were here. So like, we moved in December 4th, and I already had in mind I wanted them to have hammocks. It was more so because I had this picture in my mind that they would get their favorite book and just go out there and read together, like read in the, like, on their hammocks. And they do that sometimes, but it's a fort and a club out there, and they have their own imagination play out there, which is perfect too. So
yeah. Yeah, but when I bought the trampoline, I definitely was. What's that?
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, but selfishly too, I know there was some hidden motives when I bought the trampoline that was like, oh yeah, this will. I think I was more so thinking of Stephanie. I was like, I know she's trying to get homeschooling done and this and that, and she like has to break it up sometimes where she does 2 or 3 kids at a time. I was like, the trampoline would be perfect for like a filler for them to go outside, get the noise out there. We'll have, she'll be able to focus on homeschool. So there was definitely some intentionality with that. Like, hey, let's get them outdoors as much as possible. Even if it takes an object to help do that on the hot days. And it really helped this summer because it got hotter than normal sooner. And that trampoline is still somewhat engaging, or the water sprinkler that you can attach to the top of the trampoline, which added that extra entertaining factor. Yeah. Or the slip and slide, the things that you say, hey, look, even on a hot summer day, the heated index might be close to 100. You can still enjoy the outdoors. We just got to get creative. So
water and popsicles.
That's right.
Yes.
Hay bales in the barn, exploring the pasture. I mean, there's a lot of things that they kind of find their niches, but yeah, those two are some top ones for sure.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we just want to say, like, thank you guys so much. We're hoping this is one of many that we'll be able to have you guys on for. We just feel like y'all have so much wisdom and are one step ahead of us in or
Several steps ahead of us.
5 steps ahead of us in seasons of life. And we just love getting to have these conversations with you guys and just share them with people. So thank you guys for coming on.
I can't take any credit for any wisdom. Maybe Stephanie. For us, it's more about experience. Like I said, it took us 8 years to even get to the point of putting together a vision statement. I wish I would have started that many years sooner. So props to you guys too on doing this right out of the gate in your marriage, being intentional about how you want to father and mother and parent your kids, and also just focus on your own marriage and making that the rock of everything. So y'all have inspired us as well, and we're honored. But anyway, excited for you too, because just about to have your second one, and don't blink. You'll have 6 just like us or more.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it, guys. Well, just same as always, for you guys who are listening, just thank you so much for all the ratings and reviews and comments that you guys give us. We really do appreciate that and enjoy hearing from y'all, and it does really help us to just share the word and sharing it with your friends and family. It's such a help to us on getting the podcast out. So thank you so much. We'll talk to you guys next week. See ya.